So what stage are we with that prisoner transfer agreement, and does it apply to this case about drug trafficking?
I'm not quite sure about that, but the stage we are that is still in the works. In the sense that draft agreements have to go back and forth between the two countries for consideration and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. But an indication from the Indonesian ambassador to Nigeria, who was summoned to the foreign ministry yesterday, is that it may take a while before the prisoner transfer agreement comes into fruition.
All right, then I'm just wondering, because there are lots of Nigerians who also think that when it comes to the country standing up for their citizens, there's a lot of question mark about all of those. What's the thinking in the Foreign Affairs Ministry about the country standing up for us? Because, I think it was 2 days ago when we had a guest here who was talking about the piracy incident where Nigerians were held hostage. It took over almost a year because there were several committees that were being set up, all the bureaucratic bottlenecks and red tapeism they had to go through, and they thought that wasn't properly handled.
Well, in case of convictions for drug trafficking in Indonesia, I think, indeed I know, that the Foreign Ministry has been on top of the situation. How? Immediately we receive reports, we always summon here the ambassador of Indonesia to register our protest. Ditto for instructions that go out to our ambassador in Jakarta to replicate the same thing at the foreign ministry. Right. Now, as you do that, you can only keep up the diplomatic pressure. And like the gentleman there, Charles Adeogun-Philips, so succinctly put it, yes, you can apply diplomatic pressure, but when once the country, the sovereign country in question, decides otherwise, to go ahead and implement its law to the fullest, you only have the diplomatic window to register your protests.
Just let me come in here. Apart from that, I guess what Chamberlain is trying to put out to you is, we have had series of mails, comments coming in from Nigerians living outside the country, having one problem or the other, needing the attention of Nigeria's high commissions or embassies, but it would seem as if they hardly get the needed support or advice from such officers.
Well, we can take cases on an individual basis, because what is the nature of complaint? Exactly. We know that all missions are under instructions to attend to Nigerians promptly. And what kind of attentions? We also advise Nigerians that on arrival at any country where we have a mission, you go and register, tell the mission you are on ground, where you are, and how you can be reached. We have cases where a lot of Nigerians wouldn't do that until they get into one kind of trouble or the other.
All right, we have to thank you for speaking with us there, Mr. Ogbole Amedio, the Director, Public Communication Division, Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you for having me on your program.
All right, let's also get your perspective on this one. May 29, there'll be a new government in place.
Yes.
And then they will also be faced with what goes on with our embassies and foreign embassies across the world. And again, our image will also be out there. But is there anything, or you think that when they come in, they should approach different in terms of how our embassies across the world respond to cases of Nigerians out there?
Well, when you say cases of Nigerians, we certainly don't want to send the message that as a country, we excuse crime, the commission of any sort of crime in anybody else's territory, because we wouldn't take it here. So that's really not the point. It's not to use the diplomatic muscle or political muscle to shield Nigerians overseas from facing justice for crimes that they have committed, but rather to give them the necessary support that they need to be processed through the legal systems of that country. And I wonder, for example, in the case of Indonesia, whether perhaps if our government had been willing to fund legal representation at the highest levels for these 3 or 4 Nigerians alleged to have been guilty or to have committed these crimes, they may not have found some technical or forensic way of maybe asking for a retrial or something. One doesn't really know the level of legal representation they got. I don't even know whether Indonesia has a public funded legal aided system to represent indigent people who are accused of crimes. Now, that is the sort of support that as a government we can give to our citizens overseas who have been accused of heinous crimes. The legal support to ensure that they get the most efficient legal representation as they are processed through the legal systems of those individual countries.
Do you see the perception of corruption perhaps waning or taking a different turn when they take over?
When the incoming government takes over? Well, there's been a lot of talk about corruption being in the forefront of the incoming government's agenda, and that certainly has to be a welcome development. But then again, they literally have to hit the ground running, and there has to be certain concerted efforts to gain public confidence. We've heard incoming government and against incoming government talk about the same thing. In the very few days after they've been elected into office, or actually inaugurated rather, into office, certain steps have to be taken. It's important to instill public confidence, to create also public awareness amongst the citizenry, to enlighten them that there are institutions in place, because Nigeria is not lacking in anti-corruption laws, and we're not lacking in anti-corruption institutions either. The lacuna, as it were, is in our ability to coordinate the activities of these anti-graft agencies, but also to make them accountable for the funds and the budget, the cost of running them. So you need to coordinate the activities. You need to create oversight. There are about 10 anti-corruption, or what I call anti-corruption or transparency agencies in Nigeria, all piggybacking on each other. That is not the problem for now, because to go in there and seek to dissolve these organizations, you will be met with people with vested interests. So the policy should be towards preventing terrorism as opposed to prosecuting those responsible for terrorism. Anti-corruption. We've been through the prosecutorial aspect of it, and I think the emphasis has to be on prevention. So setting up institutions that create oversight, creating public awareness as to the existence of the institutions that they can go to, like the Public Complaints Commission, for example, which is in all 36 states. But then you also have to ensure that those who make the complaint are assured of a level of protection. You certainly don't want reprisal attacks against people like you or myself who have made complaints to the Public Complaints Commission. Yeah. We need to strengthen the Code of Conduct Bureau. And like I said, the institutions exist. The declaration of assets. It's one thing to declare assets, it's another thing to monitor the declaration of assets. Whoever comes back after they've left office to say, well, you declared one Volkswagen when you came in, and when you left with a Rolls Royce. We don't get those kind of things because there is no monitoring. So there are so many aspects to an anti-corruption strategy that they need to focus on. In essence, they have to set up institutions that they can leave behind when they leave.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Charles Adeogun-Philips is an international prosecutor at The Hague. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and we'll be back after the break. Don't go away.